Hello friends, in this video we will discuss about the establishment and the role of Indian Air Force. So let's start the video. The Indian Air Force was established in British India as an auxiliary of Royal Air Force with the enactment of Indian Air Force Act 1932 on 8 October. Okay, and on this day the Indian Air Force adopted the Royal Air Force insignia, brevets and badges. Okay, and after the establishment of Indian Air Force on 1st April 1933, Indian Air Force has commissioned its first squadron, name as number 1 squadron. Not a number 1 means just like we have 1 squadron, 2 squadron, 3 squadron, then its first squadron name is number 1 squadron. Okay. So on 1st April 1933, the Indian Air Force has commissioned its first squadron with 4 Wapiti biplanes are there and 5 pilots are there. And at that time, the Indian Air Force pilots are led by the flight lieutenant, and the name of the flight lieutenant is Cecil Boucher, and later he become the air vice marshal. Okay. Then after that, till 1941, Indian Air Force has only 1 squadron in that. Okay, and at the time of establishment of Indian Air Force, we have only 2 branches are there. First, ground duties branch, and second is logistic branch. As you all know that at this time we have 4 branches, just like first is flying branch in Indian Air Force, second the technical branch, third ground duty branch, and fourth medical branch. But at that time in 1941 we have only 2 branches are there, first ground duties branch and second logistic branch. So then after that, during World War, you all know better about World War, which is between British and against the Japanese. Okay, and at that time, Indian Air Force has played a very important role. Okay, so during World War, the roundel of Indian Air Force has a red center. Okay, but to eliminate the confusion with the Japanese Hinomaru symbol, the Indian Air Force removed the red center roundel. Okay, and adopted the another one. I think that it is blue one. Okay, so after the World War, when World War started in 1939, 1941 till 1941 we have only 1 squadron is there, but in 1943 our squadron raised to 7, and finally in 1945 we have 9th squadron. The role of Indian Air Force in World War II is that the Indian Air Force has been blocking the advanced Japanese army in Burma and do his first air strike in a Japanese military base at Arakan. And due to the important role and the crucial role played by the Indian Air Force, Sir King George VI has conferred the prefix name Royal in 1945, and at that time the Indian Air Force is known as the Royal Indian Air Force. Okay. So this is the role played by Indian Air Force before the independence of our country. So what happened after the independence of our country? It's the most interesting fact to knowing that what happens after independence of our country. As we all know that in 1947 our country is independent from the British Empire. But at that time, at the same time, our country was partitioned also. You all know that our country is partitioned into 2 new countries. First is known as Union of India, and second is called as Dominion of Pakistan, means India and Pakistan. Okay, and at that time, when the country is partitioned, our country is partitioned in 2 parts, the assets and the facilities of Indian Air Force were divided among the 2 countries. Why it happened? Because when the geographical line of 2 countries was going to be set, then 3 out of 10 commands, operational squadrons called 3 out of 10 operational squadron lie under the Pakistan border, and the 7 operational squadron lie under the Indian border. Okay, then after that, after the commands were distributed among the 2 countries, the roundel of Indian Air Force has changed. And it was taken as chakra, derived from the Ashok chakra. At that time, you see in the center of national flag chakra, that same symbol, that same roundel was adopted by Indian Air Force at that time. Okay. Then after the independence of our country, at the same time, the conflict broke out between the India and Pakistan to take a control over the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, so the Maharajas of Jammu and Kashmir decided to accede India to take a military help. So after the successful accession signed by the Maharaja of Jammu and Kashmir, the Royal Indian Air Force was called out. Okay, was called to take the military troops in the war zone in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay, and at that time, Indian Air Force has shown the best management for the logistic department, for the logistic branch. Okay, best management in the logistics. But at that time, Royal Indian Air Force does not engage the Pakistan Air Force in air-to-air combat. Okay, but it provides a support to the army troops, either in the form of logistics, either in the form of to transfer the military troops from one place to another place. And this war is also called as undeclared war. And this is the first role played by Indian Air Force after the independence of our country. So note it down carefully that in undeclared war of India and Pakistan, Indian Air Force, Royal Indian Air Force had done two things. First, transfer the troops in the war zone. Okay, then after that, does not try to engage the Pakistan Air Force in air-to-air combat. Okay, that's all. For then what are the next role played by the Indian Air Force? So let's discuss about that. When our country became independence, then after that in 1950 our country became republic. Okay, then when our country became republic, the Indian Air Force has do two major changes. Okay, first, the roundel of Indian Air Force was changed to the current roundel. Okay, it means that the roundel of Indian Air Force changed 3 times. First during World War, second after the independence, and third after the republic. Okay, so the current roundel is the current roundel means the present roundel, saffron, white and green. You know na? Outer is saffron, in middle white, and under middle it is green in color. Is the current roundel of Indian Air Force, which was adopted in 1950. Okay. Then after that, second change is that the name Royal from the Indian Air Force was also removed. Okay. From that day, the Royal Indian Air Force was known as only Indian Air Force. Then after our country became republic in 1961. Our country's Indian Air Force played a very important role in Congo. What happened there? When the Belgium's 75-year rule over Congo ended abruptly, the United Nations launched the mission in Congo, where the Indian Air Force sent its number 5 squadron there, and our squadron unit was stayed there till 1966 and take participation in the United Nations operation and played a very important role in that. Okay, so this is the first role played by the Indian Air Force after the Republic of our country. Then after that in 1961, when the Indian government decided to deploy the Indian Armed Forces to evict the Portuguese out of Goa and other enclaves after the year of negotiation, mission was launched, Operation Vijay, in which Indian Air Force was requested to support the military troops. And in that mission, Indian Air Force became successful and played a very important role in that, and they are successful to evict the Portuguese out of Goa and other enclaves. Okay. Then after in 1962, after the 3-year wars between India and China, in 1965 the Indian Air Force tried to improve its capabilities in logistic and the rescue operation. Indian Air Force inducted a new aircraft. Name was that 72 HS-748S aircraft, which was made by the Hindustan Aeronautics Limited. Okay. Then after that in 1966, note it is an important point. Okay, in 1966 a new regiment was found, a para regiment. You all better know, a new regiment was formed, a para regiment. Then after that in 1984 Operation Meghdoot was launched. Okay, what is Operation Meghdoot? Operation Meghdoot was launched to capture the Siachen glaciers. In this Operation Meghdoot, in Operation Meghdoot, the Indian Air Force participated 3 helicopters. First Mi-8, second Chetak, and third Cheetah helicopter. These are the 3 main helicopters that take the military troops in the Siachen glaciers. Okay, and there also the military operations played by Indian Air Force and our Indian Army become successful. Operation Meghdoot also become successful, and this is the most important mission played by Indian Air Force. Then after in 1987, the Indian Air Force also supported the Indian peacekeeping force in the northeastern part of Sri Lanka in Operation Pawan. Then what is this Operation Pawan? Operation Pawan is in this Operation Pawan, about 70,000 sorties were flown by the Indian Air Force transport and the helicopter forces to support the 1 lakh troops and the paramilitary forces without a single loss of aircraft and mission aborted. This mission is also successful, made by Indian Air Force and our Indian military forces. Then after the Kargil war, Operation Safed Sagar was there, in which Indian Air Force have to find the air base, find the bases of the terrorists in the Indian territory. At that time also Indian Air Force become successful, and our two heroes are, I know the name of two heroes of the Kargil war, which was in Indian Air Force. First was Nachiketa sir, Flight Lieutenant Nachiketa sir, and the second one is a martyred Flight Lieutenant Ajit sir, I think Ajay Ahuja. Yeah. He is also a hero of Kargil war. Okay, so this is the most important role played by Indian Air Force, and many our great fighter pilots, many our great officers were martyred in to make this institution a reputed and a disciplined institution in our country. And there is one motto of Indian Air Force, that is touch the sky with glory. And I think that and I believe that our Indian Air Force of this motto, touch the sky with glory, has touched the sky, really touched the sky. So chant to all, and I am coming with the next video of in the ranks. What are the ranks of Indian Air Force, and what are the organization of Indian Army, okay, and what are the role played by the Indian Army. So that's all for today. Jai Hind.